Thursday edition, special Thursday edition of our Finance and Operations Committee meeting. There's many items on this agenda, so let's try to be as succinct as possible. But of course, we'll spend as much time on any particular item as we need to in order to do the work that the committee needs to do. But if people could just be succinct, that might help us move this along in a rapid fashion. So we'll just jump right in. The first thing is there anything in the several information only items where there are comments or questions?
None for me.
All right, I'm hearing and seeing that there are none. So let's
None
move
for me
ahead and
either.
jump right. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and jump into the abstracts. The first one of which is, let's see here, a priority CDC infant toddler expansion grant. Ms. Valencia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is for the child daycare, well, the school readiness priority centers that are receiving the expansion funds for their infant toddler spaces. And this abstract is accompanied by agreements that have been drafted for that.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions connected to this? All right, hearing and seeing none, let's jump into the second one, which is Title III Immigrant Grant. Dr. Robles Rivas.
Hi, good evening. I'm filling in for Dr. Robles. So this is an immigrant grant abstract, total of 35,000, and the goal for this abstract is to ensure that immigrant children and youth attain English proficiency. The grant will be used for tutors, some enrichment opportunities as well, and field trips for immigrant newcomers, refugees, students who are coming into the district.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions connected to this? I had none either, and I think I forgot one, which was a school readiness priority COLA grant, which I think is Ms. Diaz Valencia.
Yes, so that is for the COLA funding for all of the school readiness sites that have not received it to date to include in each of the agreements.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions connected to that one? Hearing and seeing none, we'll jump into the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. So Ms. Joseph Lumpkin or Mr. Tabares? Mr. Tabares.
Yes. Good afternoon. So Mr. Wilcox, 3.4 to 3.5 are both 21st century. Do you want me to go one by one or just hit both of them together?
Let's go ahead and hit both of them together, please.
Perfect. Yes. So these two are competitive grants. Cohort 18 is entering its year 5 of 5, and cohort 19 is entering year 4 of 5 of the 21st Century After School grant. These two grants will be servicing Barnard, Brennan Rogers, Celentano, Fame, Hill Central, and Nathan Hale. So this money will be used to support various after school and extended school hours programming initiatives at each of those sites, and look for different ways to engage families and bring in community partnerships to provide more enrichment activities to those sites.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions related to those two? Hearing and seeing none, let's go ahead and jump to the next one, which is, I just lost it on my screen. State After School Grant.
Yes, Mr. Wilcox, 3.6 and 3.7 are both state after school. These two grants will be servicing John Martinez and King Robinson. Same efforts, just providing more extended school hours opportunities, engaging more families, and providing community-based partnerships to these sites to support more academic enrichment, as well as extra learning opportunities for our students at those sites outside of school, regular school hours.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions on those? I had none either. So the next one is, let's see here. That was 3.6 and 3.7. So we'll go to 3.8, which is Extended School Hours Grant.
Yes, and the last one under our scope is the extended school hours grant. Now this one is a grant that's given to support district-wide after-school initiatives. So wherever there is a need, wherever there's after-school programming, we use these funds to support extracurricular activities outside of school hours, as well as other family engagement activities to engage all of our students and families together.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions related to this? All right, hearing and seeing none. Let's go to the next one, which is the Connecticut High Dosage Tutoring Program. This is listed as Ms. Joyner. I'm not seeing her. Is there somebody else that can speak to this? So this is tutoring program grant for 6th, 8th grade students. Are there any comments or questions connected to this? I had none either, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next one, which is Commissioners Network Troop Grant. So this is Mr. Foreman or Ms. Denegre.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you? So this is an abstract for our Commissioners Network grant. So this was actually done before we got our total allotment. So we will have to submit an updated abstract, but that is where we're going so far with the money that we put in originally.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions connected to this? All right, I had none either. Just a general comment on all of these. There's 10 abstracts in this meeting, and I know a lot of work goes into the grant seeking. Some of these are competitive, and some of these we might have by rights, but I know there's still a lot that goes into justifying it and so on. So I just want to thank everybody for this well over $1 million, maybe $2 million coming into the district. So thank you for that. Because we could use the funds. So next group of items are the purchase orders. The first one is purchase order under the TIPS contract with IXL Learning. So Ms. Joyner, is there anybody else that can speak to this? See if I had questions on this one. I did not. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Okay. So just a reminder that if we had some comments or questions, it might have held this up moving forward. But fortunately, the documentation was pretty straightforward for this one. So we'll go ahead and go on to purchase order for HMH. Ms. Tousignant.
Good evening. This purchase order request is for HMH into reading and into literature. As you know, we're bringing in into literature for grades 6 through 8. As we brought in our core program for grades K through 5, the coaching was extraordinarily helpful and useful to not only our classroom teachers, but also our literacy coaches across the district and our administrators, as they were able to sit with the HMH coaches and learn the program and build their own capacity. We would like to do the same thing this year, focused on the into literature, so that our coaches, teachers, and administrators could get to learn the program intimately in order to improve student learning outcomes and strengthen the Tier 1 core instruction that happens in each classroom. In addition to the services being provided, HMH has added on their Coachly digital license, which is ongoing support where each building will have a coach that they could call on regularly, whether it be by phone or by a Zoom meeting, so that they don't have to wait or just depend on that meeting, that face-to-face meeting that will only happen a few times during the fall.
All right, thank you for that. Any comments or questions on this one? I had none either, so we'll go ahead and jump to the next one, which is a purchase order with NCS Pearson. Ms. Jackson? Or somebody can speak to that one. This is renewal for the 360 platform. Someone remind me what the 360 platform is?
Review 360, that's the platform that's used to hold discipline information. It's slightly different from just logging. It includes things, time of day, location, certain things that can be used to track where things happen and look for trends and do some deeper insight into what's happening.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. We'll go ahead and jump to the next one, 4.4, which is a purchase order for calm.com. This is also Ms. Jackson.
She's having some technical issues and is trying to get on right now.
Okay.
But for the last couple years, we've been able to use the Calm app with staff and students to be able to enhance the SEL components of the work we're doing.
All right, thank you. As I recall from looking at the documentation, there was usage data that was included, which is very helpful. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll go into 4.5, which is a purchase order with School Connect. So this is for School Connect. Also, Ms. Jackson, are there any, what's School Connect for? Trying to remember the. Well, are there any comments or questions related to it? I didn't have any on my list. All right. So we'll move on to 4.6, which is a purchase order for janitorial supplies. Mr. McGrath?
Yes, that's again, so we can get ready for school openings. This is just to supplement the upcoming on-call contracts where we're waiting for approval, but we still need to get schools ready, and obviously this is going to help in that process.
Right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the explanation. What's the general amount of full contracts, since this one is just a starter contract?
This contract was for supplies, especially in this case for floor finishes, for stripping and finishing the floors. So we're ready for opening. There's a lot of work that has to be done in the next 3 weeks here, and the supplies not being here didn't help. So this is just like an emergency situation where, again, if we want the schools to look good, come opening, we're going to need these supplies. So that's what's coming down to.
Yes, and this is an amount that'll get us through the first couple of months. Is it like 1/3 of a regular contract? Is it?
I believe, if Mike, you can chime in on this, I believe was to get us through September, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And then next year, we're going to look at a better process to get the contracts in early and maybe look at multi-year contracts as opposed to single source.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. And we'll move on to 4.7, which is a purchase order with Allstate Fire Systems. Also, Mr. McGrath.
Yes. If you want, Mr. Wilcox, I can tie 4.7 and 4.8 together. Again, this is to get our alarm systems and everything else dealing with fire protection in line before we open schools. Again, it's kind of another where the funds aren't there right now. We need to get the work done. We need to pay our contractors, and this is going to help in that process again through September.
Also, I'd like to chip in. Luckily, we have had Jeff going out meeting with the fire marshal regularly at various buildings. Like next Monday will be at Wilbur Cross. But we have been meeting with the fire department and fire marshal's office in particular every Friday. So we get to work up a lot of things. And while there's issues of fire alarms and sprinklers and doors, we're discovering that a lot of issues are illegal storage under stairwells and data cabinets by our people. So we're working on that too.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. I just want to set up my expectations. So we expect to see like an additional agreement requests come in for the rest of the school year? Because we said like this will get us up and running maybe through September.
Yes.
Okay, but we're looking for more for later. Okay.
Yeah. This is just to get us going again with the contract not in place as of now, and it doesn't look like it's going to be in place until September. We still have issues with the systems that have to be addressed. So again, we don't want a school being closed because the fire alarm system is out. So we yeah.
Yeah. And is this what is meant by like 24,000 compared to the 150,000 for last year? Is me like this is just a portion to get us going. And
This is all of these are a portion just to keep the process moving. Again, you'll see, and if I jump to 410, you'll see that's landscaping and lawn care. The grass is still growing, everything's still happening. It's still got to be mowed, and we need the money to pay the contractors to do it. So that's what it all comes down to.
yeah, I appreciate keeping the process going and also getting these in so we can approve and pay. So we're not kind of starting the work and trying to build later. So thank you for the process.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, my question was related to that too, because so for both 4.7, 8, 9, and 10, I think they all state that these are short-term things in place, that the full award, when it comes back with the rest of the year, this amount will be deducted from that, so that it'll be the money will be right, but this will get us through September. And then the reason is because the contract executions are being held up. And my question is what's the nature for each of these 7, 8, 9, and 10? What's the nature of the contract execution holdups?
Well, to be honest, Mr. Wilcox, I'm not sure why they get held up. I can personally say on my part, I had contracts ready to go back in April, but from what I understood, there was a funding questions as to where the money was coming from, all that, and for whatever reason, they got pulled, and I'm not sure why it took so long to get it going again, but we were ready to go, but something delayed it all. And I just want to make sure we don't have that gap, like Mr. Yarbrough said in the process, that now we got to play catch up.
I'll be working with ABM and our staff here to make certain that communication process is upfront and we can move these things forward.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. So I think that was 4.7 and 8. And so 4.9 is with East Shore Glass. Mr. McGrath?
That's strictly for repair right now. We've got a lot of broken window and other glass products out there that need to be repaired before we open school. That's a safety concern right now. So not just physical safety, but I want to make sure your buildings aren't broken into or whatever because of an open I guess invitation. We don't want those invitations out there. So
Sounds prudent. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. On these purchase orders, I generally agree with having these purchase orders in place. I don't see much in terms of detail for what the actual cost is going to be. Um, when we go to the one we already covered with the janitorial supplies, there's like a list of what's being purchased. Is the difference that these are services, and so we don't actually know what's coming up, and as repairs are needed, we'll charge against this. Is that how it's working, or?
These are actually existing issues right now that need to be addressed, especially with the glass product.
Okay.
Same thing with fire alarm. We have existing conditions right now that have to be addressed. And I mean, I don't have the particulars in front of me as to which windows or which doors need repair, as far as the glass goes. But I mean, I can get that if you need it, I can get that to you.
I don't need to know today, but I would like to know what we're paying for in terms of what we can expect to be covered with the amount. But that's not something that I am looking for today.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
I would just add that one thing that would make it easier is the for the things that go out to bid, just tacking on the bid document that outlines the service that we were seeking would provide that kind of information, and it would be something that was already in existence and probably pretty easy to tack on, just kind of moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to pull something new together. Yeah, thank you.
Accomplish that. But the information would be available through the city's purchasing system, just to kind of go in and do a search for the on-call glass contract. Anything that goes through in that was bid and awarded would go through that.
Thank you.
All right, and 410 was already mentioned, is the landscaping services. So I think we've kind of covered that. Are there any comments or questions related to that? All right, then we'll jump into an agreements. The first one is an agreement with Laura Goldblum for monitoring social work interns. And I'm trying to see. There was one of these I was going to recuse myself because it directly involved Quinnipiac University, of which I'm an employee. But I don't think it's this one. So
Dan Wojnarowski is here to cover this one for Wilberforce.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Hi, everyone. The social work intern program at Wilbercross is a real lifeline for our students. It helps support. I'm sorry, my house just got a little louder. Give me.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So the 8 interns work primarily with our freshman class, which, as many know on the call, is approaching over 500 right now. Our current social workers are they've really absorbed quite large caseloads. The interns support with homeroom push-ins, programs on our Wellness Wednesday. They're really utilized quite effectively and efficiently. So it's something that really supports our whole child approach at school.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions on this? I had none either. I think it's great though, because it also provides the educational opportunity for the university students. So multiple wins connected to that. So the next item is an agreement with Dr. Constance Catroni or something similar. And this is
Yes.
Ms. Brillante.
I'm covering this one. This is exactly the same thing, but with this person instead. The interns help dramatically with the various issues that come up for our students. It's another line of support for the social emotional support that our students need to get them back into class, conflict resolution, all of the things that we need right now, and a dozen more of. 3 dozen more of.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarber.
Yes, just thank you to the one who prepared the document, the data of the 2023-2024 school year in terms of the number of sessions. And in past years, I appreciated seeing that and the number of students being served. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we'll go on to the next one, which is an agreement with the Foundation of Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce related to the citywide science fair program. This is Mr. McCain or somebody.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
if I may. This one kind of got lost through the cracks when it was submitted to the business office and never made it to get on an agenda. The Chamber Foundation manages the science fair program district-wide and at the schools. They provide the mentors for the program. And so this is actually covering this past year's science fair program.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I'll just say from previous testimony, previous years, that this is a very cost-effective way to do this, and that the Chamber of Commerce does a lot to this. And I know from the times I've been involved in science fair things, both as a parent and also visiting some schools or going to the final awards, that it's a great program. So okay, so this is one that fell through the cracks, but we're making it right now. Okay. And I think this is the first. I don't recall it falling through the cracks before, so there's not a systemic issue. It's just something. Things happen. Okay. Thank you for the explanation, Ms. DeMeo. And we'll move on to the next one, which is 5.4, an agreement with Clifford Beers for mental health clinicians. Ms. Derwin?
Good evening. This is an agreement for the Head Start program for 2 job-embedded mental health clinicians who are on site that service the children, staff, and families of the Head Start students at our 7 locations.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Okay. I had none. Just note that this is a mandated thing from Head Start that we have these services available. So I'll move on to 5.5, which is an agreement with Adriana International for athletic training services. Is Mr.
That's mine.
Here?
I'm doing this one as well,
All right,
as well as the next one. Obviously, we need the athletic trainer at our facilities to assist our student athletes, and it's a requirement as part of this CIAC.
Okay. Comments or questions? I'll just state that I've renewed appreciation for sports, watching various Olympic events and anything connected to it. It's quite an inspirational thing. I'm glad we're able to provide a wide variety of sports. Move on to the next one, which is with agreement with American Medical Response. Dr. White?
Yes, this is to also have ambulance services available at sporting events should they be needed, should there be a severe injury that's needed. And again, it's all in support of both our student athletes, but also it does support those in attendance at the events too, particularly this time of year when it would be extremely hot or other conditions as we move to the winter season of extreme cold.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions for this one? I had none either. We'll move on to, looks like 5.7, 5.8, and 5.9 are all related, involving infant, toddler, and daycare spaces. So let's handle those together. Ms. Diaz-Valencia?
Hello again. Yes, so 5.7, 5.8, and 5.9 are with Friends Center at both of the Blake Street and East Grand Avenue locations. And then the third one is with First Step Child Daycare Center. These funds come from the school readiness funding straight from the state, where we act as the fiduciary or the pass-through for all of these. These are your agreements written for the fiscal year 2025.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions on any of these three? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to 5.10, which is an agreement with Cheshire Fitness Zone. Ms. Jackson.
Contracts that we have, and a couple of you see mandated speech. Is as
It's
mandated.
really hard to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I'm having some connection issues. Can you hear me now? No.
Sort of. I can make out what you're saying. It sounds a little bit robotic, I guess.
Sorry. It is any better?
I'm not able to make it out.
Mr. Wilcox, can we move on to, I guess, Ms. Tusignan would be the next person, and Ms. Jackson, if you want to come up to my office so you could do yours afterwards, just to keep the meeting moving.
That sounds good.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi again. So this is for a contract with EASES for digital services that are provided for our digital platforms within English language arts. This is for our onboarding, our support. Anthony Moore provides these services for us. He not only works very closely with all of the Reading and Language Arts Department, but he works closely with others in the on the academic team, such as the Special Education Department and the Multilingual Department, to support all of their language arts needs as well as everything to do with the data that goes along with our programs. So he is instrumental in keeping things running smoothly on the digital front for us.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions connected to this? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. Does he train our district on these programs?
As far as I know, and of course, I'm only going into my second year here, but what I've been told is that our tech department doesn't have the capacity to take on the needs of the language arts department. That's what I have been told.
Okay, so does this person do the training? So I'm wondering if we are also paying these individual companies to do the training, and if if this is an additional person who is providing training. I know you mentioned he helps with the data, but does he also help train on how teachers and staff may utilize the programs in the classrooms? Or
No. He does just the technological part. So making sure that we're up and running. We do the training in-house, our literacy coaches, we do all of that as far as the actual training of using the program. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
No, you're probably clear. I'm just asking questions. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, thank you for that. And looks like Ms. Jackson's now available again, so we'll drop back to, I think it was 5.10 with Cheshire Fitness Zone.
Yep, this is a contract for our special education speech and language mandated services. And you'll see there's also a couple others that'll be coming up as well.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions for this? And if I remember, this is speech language is one of the shortage areas in the state and very difficult to find people to employ by the district directly.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll move on to 511, which is an agreement with Julie Bossenberry.
Yep, Julie Bossenberry provides us services specifically in the area for hearing and providing us with services specifically around like our FM equipment for students who have hearing impairments.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. We'll move on to 512, an agreement with Center for Pediatric Therapy.
Again, 512 is the again another contract for speech and language pathology, again to assist us in our service delivery for mandated speech services.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. So looks like next one is what, 513, 14 are the same, similar as well?
Yep. They are.
This is a question about which one is this? 5.12. It says the cost increase for about $80,000. What's said expected cost increase? Yeah.
Right, for them to be able to provide us with additional support. So again, this provider has provided us with service providers, but again, also to be able to provide us an additional person.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I think that 512, 13, and 14. So 515 is an agreement with ACES and Ms. Jackson also. No, I'm sorry. That was we had just heard that one. That's Ms. Tousignant. We already heard about. So 516 is an agreement with Elizabeth Salato Child Care Center, Ms. Jackson.
Yep, this is again our childcare services for our high school parents. Allows them access to our daycare program. We have a long-standing history with them.
And if people don't know, we have a full daycare center at Cross High School, which is very cute to go visit, I have to say. Let's see here. 517, an agreement with bilingual special education.
Yep, this is provides us with the ability to provide our evaluations primarily in Spanish. So we have a provider again who is able to administer the evaluations, psychological evaluations that we have, our psychoeducational evaluations in Spanish to provide the ability to do that for our district.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none. And 518 is one I am recusing myself since I am an employee of Quinnipiac University. So Dr. Yarborough, if you don't mind taking over the meeting, and if you choose to, you could also move to send it to the full board when we're done, just to get it out of the way.
Thank you. 518 is an agreement with Quinnipiac University. Ms. Morales.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm here to secure funding for 2 Quinnipiac interns. So the interns are pre-service teachers. They're in their 5th year of their program, and they support the school, the entire school actually. They provide substituting, they support Tier 1 instruction, they support with small group instruction, they mentor students, and in addition, they get back in return from the district, of course, because it provides opportunities for them, and it gives them exposure to classroom and hands-on experiences.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I move that we send to the full board agreement 5.18 to recommend for approval.
Second?
There's a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take a vote. President Rivera?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wilcox?
Recused?
And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Wilcox, I'd like to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. We'll move on to 519, which is an agreement with Michael Macniak. Ms. Jackson?
Yeah, that's an agreement for Attorney Macniak, who serves as our hearing officer over our expulsion cases.
Great. Thank you. And it was expulsion cases, particularly around student service, not limited. It's special education as well, decision write-ups, etc.
So
Okay.
he primarily, yeah, it does have on here about special education write-ups, but primarily his job is really just the oversight of the hearings and the write-ups that come as a result of that. That could include students with disabilities as well.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right. I hope his services are not well used this year. We'll move on to 520, which is an agreement with Attorney Philpott.
Yep, that agreement is for Attorney Philpott, who represents the district in expulsion hearings.
All right. Comments or questions? All right, thank you. I hope he is also bored this year often. 5.21 in agreement with DePino, Nunez, and Biggs. Mr. Carter?
Yes, good afternoon. This is for basic lobbying services. And in the follow-up questions, we provide the detail that the committee requested. And if Attorney Alexiata is on the call, if he has any additional comments, but we provided the additional comments for this agreement and the next two.
All right, if you wouldn't mind just summarizing what those comments were for this item,
Okay.
because there's people in the public that haven't seen those.
Let me find my. Okay. The it was there was some data that was requested. We emailed the vendor, but we haven't got the report. But there was a question about what other towns and interests these lawyers represent and lobby, and we provided those answers. And a question about the turnaround time, and the turnaround time is very good. We have had no issues with this law firm for lobbying services, but we have got the report, which I don't know if we could share at this time, but they provide the information that we need, and they do represent other interests, other
Dr.
towns.
Negron?
Yes, I also wanted to share that one of the offerings that I made to the inquiry was that they were instrumental in the way that we partner with the city of New Haven when it came time to advocate for necessary funding that we needed to support repairs for the Floyd Little Athletic Center, as well as additional dollars that were needed to keep the adult education project on time. And again, they did a lot of work with us to help us putting everything together to advocate to the delegation, which proved to be successful because we did receive millions of dollars to be able to support those two projects.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarborough?
Yes. I do wonder from the law firm whether they represent other districts and if there's a conflict of interest when it comes to lobbying for funds for our district when the state is deciding between which funding amounts go to which districts. So I'm not sure if that information is known by us, but maybe the vendors, the law firm can provide it.
Attorney Alexiadis?
Yes, thank you. I don't know the answer to the question with regard to the DePino lobbying firm, but I would note that they are not, lobbying is not practicing law, so it's subject to different conflict of interest procedures than the formal practice of law. So we can get the answer to that question. I don't know how you want to receive that information or deal with it. And I'm not directly involved with them, but I believe, and as Dr. Negron said, that they've been very helpful and successful for us. And in terms of lobbyists, there probably is not one for every school district. A separate firm for every school district. It's a relatively small universe of effective and experienced lobbyists. So there's surely going to be some overlap, but we can address that offline if you would like, Dr. Garber.
Thank you. I don't know if I need a report back specifically. I think my request is, I know the district has utilized or paid for services from a lobbying firm for a while. I don't know if it's this company or another company. I think my request is that we investigate the lobbying efforts and for the main kind of financial and otherwise priorities that we have in terms of being fully funded as a district, then maybe we see whether this lobbying firm or another lobbying firm may serve us better, or if the ones we're currently using are serving us well, because we do want to move the needle as it relates to being a fully funded district. And again, I don't know that that pertains to this particular lobbying firm, but if our district staff, if the leaders would look into that and then make a decision whether to keep moving forward with the same firm or to eventually add on an additional lobbying firm or switch firms. So, but I don't need to know specifically right now, what the answer might be.
I'll just add, based on previous testimony from previous years, that, and also my experience, the few times I've had conversations with the representative from this firm, that they do have an educational lobbying part of their services, similar to how Shipman and Goodwin has educational law services. They do work, I think, with a variety of districts. One complaint I've had from members of the public is that in addition to working with public school districts, they'll also work with charter school districts. And so they wonder if there's a conflict there, or which gets into the whole charter versus public thing. And so they do wonder about that. So I just would, caution, we need to make sure that we have an agenda of how to use their services, which we've talked about as a board. We need to have an agenda for this moving forward to the next biennial budget, which all the hearings and things start up in January. So I'm hoping we can really utilize these services and cooperate with other districts in order to really continue to advocate for full education funding for Connecticut schools. So, all right. Any other on this item? Hearing none, we'll go on to an agreement with 5.22, an agreement with Morris, Duffy, Alonzo, and Faley. Mr. Carter?
Okay, thank you. This agreement is for lobbying expertise, and we have been working with this firm for several years, and they've always met the obligations of this agreement. In particular, this is a service which must be provided by a New York-based firm for an ongoing litigation versus NHPS in New York. So this is for services that they have expertise in representing the district.
All right, thank you. Attorney Alexiadis, you had something to add?
Well, I was only going to note that we have one case pending in New York, and they're representing us. I deal with them frequently on this matter, and they seem to be highly competent.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? I'll just note that we'll get a report of the overall legal expenses by firm with the district in the first October F&O meeting. So we do that every year in the first October meeting. So we get an overview of all the various legal things that the district's involved in, what it's costing in a single report. All right. Next 5.23 is an agreement with Shipman and Goodman. Mr. Carter?
Yes, thank you. This agreement is for legal services. And in the past, this agreement was split into two types of services, general and litigation. This year is combined into one. And it makes it easy to going forward to process invoices. So we are happy with this firm, and we'll continue to rely upon them for those services that are needed for large agreements, such as the ones we have now.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Attorney Alexiadis?
So the lawyers at Shipman and Goodman literally wrote the book on Connecticut school law. So they're very good at what they do, and I've handled a wide variety of things. The historical split between two contracts, we think it's much better and efficient to combine them into one, and that's also what staff have represented to the Board of Alders when seeking amendments that we wouldn't split it up going forward, because it just seemed to be an unnecessary division. Then you got of allocating invoices or matters from one to the other.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either, so we'll move on to 5.24, an agreement under sole source with Artis Energy. Mr. Carter?
Yes, Artis Energy will maintain to the point of network internet connection, all installed 9000 series data collections devices, and all Artis installed transducers, current transformers, and related equipment. This is very important to us with the amount of technology we have, and we support this agreement going forward.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes. I may or may not understand the agreement, but my question is about their monitoring services, and if at some point the results of the district data may be shared. And I'm curious whether there are decisions that our district has made or are considering making from, collecting this information. Like what is the utility or potential utility of monitoring? So thank you.
Yeah, there is value in having this data over a several year period, so we can look at the trends and look at what decision points we want to make with our technology and energy going forward.
Thank you. And I think this would be, depending on what data are available, I don't know if we have multiple monitoring systems, but as it relates to energy, I recognize we have a climate interest and a sustainability interest, and being able to track and report on how we are doing, even at the building level, device level, would be of interest to me, and I imagine the climate agreement that the board is supported and signed. That's all, Mr. Wilcox. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that it would be nice to be able to have some like baseline information when there is going to be an energy project that's going to, so for instance, a new HVAC system is going to be going into some of our schools, to know what we were spending on energy costs before and see what it costs after, in order to be able to say, see, we reduced our energy costs by 10% or by whatever number. That would just be some of that, just show progress along those things. So. All right. We'll move on to 5.25, which is year 4 of the multi-year agreement with the company that owns the lease or the building at L.T. Grasso Boulevard for adult ed. Mr. Carter?
Yes. This lease is for a space that has housed the adult education program for many, many years. And therefore, the lease must continue until the new construction for the future adult education location. And we can then transition to another lease at a later time. But we have to continue this lease until we finish with the new construction of the adult education center.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes. There's a cost increase of 2.96%, 20,800. Do we know, are we receiving something additional with this cost increase?
Dr. Yarbrough, I don't have that answer, but I can get it back to you tomorrow. But I don't know if there was a cost multiplier in the original lease. I have to.
Maybe it's okay.
As I recall, there was as part of it was a 4-year agreement with agreed upon increases per year. That's my recollection.
Yes, and I see it now. It's in the documentation for 2024 to 2025. Okay. I was just making sure. I think there was a water problem there. I was making sure they weren't charging us for the repairs that they were responsible for making. So thank you.
Well, and a warning is we're going to have to do at least one more year lease with this company because of the construction has not yet started on the new adult ed space over on Bassett Street. And so there will be potential for cost increases there. As I recall, when this company purchased the building, prices went up huge amount. I can't remember, 30-40%. When we started to work with them, and we were kind of stuck. So hopefully they won't stick us again.
Thank you.
But then we'll be moving into glorious new space. Hearing nothing else on this item, we'll move on to 5.26, an agreement with Windstream Telecommunication Services. Mr. Simeon or
Chris Brown?
Yes, I'll be speaking for Mr. Simeon on this. This agreement is to continue the phone service, the voice over IP phone service for the schools.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions for this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, just want to clarify that May 1st, 2024 is the correct start date versus July 1st.
So this is going to start a new 3-year contract, which is going to run from June this year through June of 27. So there was an addendum put in place to take care of May. So this is starting for June.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else on that, we'll move on to 5.27, an agreement with Higher Heights Youth Empowerment. Dr. Billy?
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Higher Heights is a partnership within Hillhouse High School that helps our students with their financial aid and to be able to complete their FAFSAs. Also with our seniors, allowing them to be able to get to more colleges, more college access, and allowing just helping with our counselors to be able to reach all of the students that would like to move forward in terms of their what they want to do with their futures.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having higher heights within our school for the services they provide, helping the students and the families explore college and go through the application and FAFSA process. So thank you for that. Um, Looking for just in the future, uh, more recent statistics of how they are doing, or showing, what they've done over multiple years. And I recognize some of the years um, have been interrupted due to COVID, but I would like to see, how they are doing. I think the most recent data presented is um, 2021 data, maybe,
Yep.
but further off. And one question is, what is the cost increase attributed to?
So the cost increases are attributed to our. So I asked higher heights
Actually,
to take
if I
our
could interrupt
students
you,
on
please,
a
sir.
week-long
It's very
college
difficult to
visit
hear
during
you.
speaking a bus of 52 students during spring break.
I'm sorry, if you could repeat that. You were cutting out at the beginning of your statement.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
So what I was saying was that I was able to speak with Higher Heights about taking a group of students on a college tour during spring break, going to from Virginia and moving themselves back up towards the north during spring break. And so they'll be taking, with that cost increase, it was to take a group of 52 students on a college tour.
Okay. I thought we also agreed to something like that last year, but maybe it was a different group. Um, Thank you. My last question is just to attach the sole source letter. So I think it's written that this is a sole source.
So yeah, I'll just, if I could interrupt, because that was also something that I noticed. It's listed both as a sole source, but that it also went through the RFQ process. My understanding is this did go through the RFQ process and is not a sole source. So it's just confusing to talk about it as a sole source unless there's an accompanying sole source letter from the city's purchasing agent.
Dr. Wilcox,
Negra?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilcox, I believe they went through the RFQ process because they did apply to do some work in after school and summer programming. So I think there might have been some confusion around that piece, but they did go through the RFQ process because they were a partner during summer as well as during after school.
Okay. So for this work, are they a sole source with the sole source letter from the city purchasing agent? Or was it the RFQ?
It was an RFQ. I think the person that filled out the abstract confused it, but it's through the RFQ process.
Got it.
So we can clean up that part of the abstract and just resubmit for the record.
Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. I would also add, as long as you're going back in and doing that, I would just also mention that the $17,000 price increase, which is pretty large, is because of accompanying increased services and not just because they're raising their rates or anything, but it's
We'll add that as well, that it's for that trip for the 52 kids. I'll make sure that gets put in there as well to justify the increase.
Okay, and that'll be posted with the meeting materials tomorrow for the Monday board meeting?
We can get that done for you, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That way it's good for the rest of the board members when they review. Because it'll come up, because that's what, 50 some percent, 52%, 53, something like that. All right, anything else on this item? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one, which is 5.28, an agreement with Justice Education Center for Career Pathways Pre-Apprenticeship Training Program. Also, Dr. Billy.
Hi, this partnership is a partnership that was established before I came to Hill House, something that has helped our students to retain OSHA training or have the opportunity to obtain OSHA training. Also, as well as students, they provide teaching for our students in the area of construction, as well as in the area of automotive. And so that's 10 sections of classes for our students to be able to engage in those classes.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. Thank you for continuing this service that's been a part of the school. Two questions. One is, to what is the $15,000 increase due? And my second question is, I think I saw written in two places that no RFP was extended, but that also there were no other applicants. So just trying to clarify what was the process used for this agreement.
We're also unable to hear you.
I believe for the second question is the same as when you asked the previous agreement. I believe that was in they were also trying to do something for the summer. To hear me now?
No, if you could start again. I mean, I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear you before.
Not a problem.
Billy, it's probably best if you turn off your camera. You'll probably stream better.
So that second question is also related to the first agreement when you asked about the RFP as well. The company was also given opportunity for the summer, and that's why they sent that out. And I believe that was written in error, so we'll get that fixed as well.
It is the same situation as
ready for the board. Get materials. Our students, if you have gone over in terms of the $15,000 increase, that goes to the price of materials that Justice Education provides all the materials for our students, and that's just the cost of materials. So what we have to do at the Hill House end is to figure out how we can add that to our general budget at some point, and figure out how we can start getting some of the consumables that come within that agreement.
Okay, thank you for your responses. Yes, and if it's able to clean up the documentation here, I think it says in number 10B, an RFQ was submitted in 2021, and this is a continuation of this grant. So if we can just clarify what process this grant is under, that would be great. And thank you very much for both of your responses.
Absolutely. We'll get that cleaned up as soon as possible.
Yes, if we could have that done for tomorrow's posting, that would be great. And then also that extra information about the reason for the increased costs due to increased cost of materials. All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to 5.29, an agreement with customer. 5.29 and 5.30 are two agreements with CT Custom Aquatics. So Mr. Carter or Mr. Lean?
Mr. McGrath?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that one. These are basically to finish these two pools to get them back online. It's they're both in need of controller. They're both in need of chemical feed systems, and then some repair to each one. I believe the one at Conte is the surface of the deck. There was I guess, a movement in one section of it that has to get grinded down and then resurfaced. And because not only becomes a trip hazard, but it also um, causes water to pool against the wall and damage the walls when water stays there. So, and obviously we want to prevent that from happening. So, but yeah, basically this is to get both these back online and get them rolling.
All right, comments or questions? Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. For this first one, one is I think the sole source number is missing under the key questions number 2, nothing selected for sole source. And also on the first page that I see, on the memo page, it has the amount under reason. So after date, then it has the reason. It has the amount as 112,585. So if the amount is 75, so I don't know which amount is correct, the 75 amount or the 112 amount. But if we can correct and clarify one of those. And then my last question is for both of these two agreements, what makes them a sole source as it relates to the purposes that we're using them?
It basically makes them a sole source because of the equipment that they're installing. They're the only company in the state that actually handles this equipment. So we've tried to find other sources. They're just not there. I mean, we could go out of state, but I'm not sure if that's going to actually be feasible for that to happen. And I believe on your first question, I believe the total amount is not to exceed 75,000. So that amount of 112, I noticed that too. And I'll get that corrected.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the amount, okay, got it. In terms of it being a sole source, I mean,
it's funny because I have a hard time believing that too, but I know from what I understand, our workforce was trying to find competitive pricing for this work, and they weren't able to find it. And I think at some point, maybe we should look into going out of state, for these services to see if we can find. I know you're not the only entity in the state that has this issue. One of our accounts at Trinity College, and they're stuck with the same scenario of this company being a sole source. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but because it's tough, and I have a hard time sometimes accepting some of their amounts, but
yeah, these OEM and manufacturers, they like their control of the market, so they go lobby and get that done. And it's hard when they have cut an agreement with a state organization to say, if you change out parts, sort of like Tesla, you got to use our parts and our parts only. So we'll look at it, but when these OEM agreements are tough to crack.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yes. If they're not required to bid on anything and we just have to take whatever quote they give us, that doesn't sound like it's to our advantage. And I don't know. I don't know. You have to go through the procedure that is set up. Even if they're listed as sole source, maybe they need to bid on this work. So there's actually some perceived or actual competition, but maybe it doesn't work that way.
I agree, and I consult with Corp Counsel. I agree totally. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Thank you.
So I'll just add to that for both of these, there is the sole source letter. So the process is the district had to justify it and provide documentation to the purchasing agent, city's purchasing agent, who then decides whether or not that it meets the requirements to be considered a sole source. And so the letter is supplied for both of these. And I think one of the new letters I see that one of the letters is relatively new in there now. We had a question previously, how long does a sole source letter last? And now they're moving forward. Looks like they're adding to the letter itself that they're a 3-year sole source designation. So that's something we might need to be thinking about moving forward. And so I wanted to just bring that up because it's the operations area where there's lots of sole source. I think is where it tends to be. We see the most of those, and now the city purchasing agent is now designating these as 3-year expiration. As long as everything remains the same, it's a 3-year. My question is, I think we've seen these or similar earlier in 2024, and so I just want to confirm that that this work hasn't. I mean, the work hasn't already been done. That this is not new work. I think we've looked at these. Is this work that was delayed and is now being able to be scheduled? And I was wondering the reasons for that.
I believe this was work that was found after other work was done, that was addressed. I know through the COO's office, they looked at the chemical feeders, for instance, which I thought you probably could have got another year or two out of them. But from what discussions happened between that office and the contractor, a decision was made to change the chemical feeders. So, and we weren't involved in that conversation at all. So that's what happened there.
So, Attorney Alexiadis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You are correct in your recollection that that work on these pools was previously approved, but it was not completed, and that's why they're coming back to you now. And I think there were various reasons for that. But I mean, I had some conversations with ABM staff about what could have gotten done, before the summer, what needed to be done. And they took a close look at it and determined that the best course would just be to resubmit for the current fiscal year, rather than they were trying to. I mean, I think these amounts are, from my recollection, are somewhat less than the prior approvals. So I think there's some savings there. But yeah, it's the discussion about the chemical feed system. And my understanding is that's a proprietary system, and they're the only source for that, and that's where the sole source letter comes from, and that we have these. And I know staff looked at trying at workarounds, and it was concluded that this ultimately was the best thing to do.
So I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to request that a quick memo is provided that explains this, just because when I went back to look at previous ones, I saw that we had previously presented an F&O. I didn't go so far as to then check to see if they went to the board and the board approved it, but some of the documentation is very similar in terms of the amount of the equipment that's going in. And I think we just need an explanation for both of these that explains what was done or what's not, because it's previously approved work. It's understandable if it wasn't able to be done, and so now, and that expired on June 30, which are all our things typically do at the end of our fiscal year, and so. But I just think we need to understand that. And unfortunately, that means we need it to Ms. DeMeo sometime Friday, tomorrow afternoon, in order for it to be posted. So I'm willing to support moving it forward to the board now, because I'm assuming we'll be able to get that information. And if not, we can withdraw it at the Monday meeting. But I think we have to understand it's combined well over $100,000. And I know there's other board members that have had questions and concerns about these. So I think we need to have that, please. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, a question. If we did already approve this work, I think earlier this year there was something that was approved and delayed. Did we go back and then some kind of way unapprove something in order to allow a new contract to move forward? I'm trying to figure out, does this one expire then and is no longer active if we did approve a previous version of either one of these and we need to do nothing, or does it still stand as active?
So, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that they do expire because there's a time frame. It's not to exceed a certain amount, and it's work to be done. Like there's a date on it. For like June 30. So both of those conditions needs to be under that amount and before that date in order to go through the payment system. I might be incorrect about that. But we have, on some cases, we've rescinded the previous approval just to make it clear so that it's not possible for us to be buying two pump systems if we need one. So we could do that. Yes, Dr. Yarbrough?
And thank you for the rescind word. Just trying to figure out what it was. As it relates to sole source, so 2 points. One, I don't know if our pool repair is almost over, but if we're continuing pool repairs, I asked our district to look into buying things where there aren't proprietary or monopolies in terms of a particular vendor, that if there's a product we can purchase that has multiple other companies that can service that product, it would be to our advantage to have some competition in this work. And I would also ask kind of to look into, I think we've put out, I think we've asked for quotes before one has come in, and then we've gone with that bid. So even if we have a sole source, I wonder why we still can't put it out to bid and see who applies to it. Maybe there's a company that begins to do the work, was able to do the work. So I'm not sure about the process, but if we are stuck with this for a long time, many years, in terms of the equipment, whatever we can do to open up competition for it so that the pricing is still appropriate for us would be great, I think. That's all.
I think we could always extend an invitation to the city purchasing folks to come in and talk about what the process is for sole source agreements and what their process is, what documentation's required, what meets the level for it. I do think we have we don't have a ton, but we do have many sole source designated things that we do every year. So my personal preference would be that we have an educational effort so that we all understand what it is, and so that we can trust that process that's in place, which I think is tied to city charter or the regulations or city.
I think that would be beneficial, the education part, especially for me. I think the benefit of it is, like, if I'm the one that has to come together and create a new contract, the benefit is I don't have to go out and ask for quotes and try to search a lot of different vendors. We have a sole source. I can go directly to them, ask them, get that number, and plug in the contract. So it would be much less work for me when I already know that this is the person and the only group that can do what needs to be done. And I recognize for that vendor, it's also a benefit because they don't necessarily have to look at much lower prices for a period of time and try to be competitive. So yes, I think education will help. And if something is a sole source, does that mean we can't go out and try to get a better solution doesn't mean we have to go with this sole source solution. I'm not sure that it does, but I don't know.
So if I could request, through the superintendent that we extend an invitation to the city purchasing folks to come in to talk to the committee one day. I think on our discussion calendar, the first September meeting, about a month from now, was light on discussion items. Maybe that's a good time to do that. Dr. Negron?
Mr. Wilcox, one of the conversations that I've been having was the need to bring that presentation, but we thought maybe through like a board workshop, because it could be beneficial to all members of the board and allow for conversation. So if you are open to that, I can definitely follow up on that.
I'm open to whatever will work to meet this goal.
Yeah, but we really felt like a board workshop could be beneficial to everybody.
That sounds good, and it would help provide some trust, because my understanding is that one has to justify this and have to show that there's a reason for it, like a company has I know, like franchisees or for parts and things like that, sometimes you have a designated service area that the manufacturer says you're the only one in this region that can sell these things, and so that's could just be the case, but it would be good to hear it from the purchasing folks as to what their standards are, and I know they have a purchasing guide that they could also give us. So yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, Mr. Wilcox, I believe customer the aquatics company did provide a letter from, I think this company is Streamlined, that provides these controllers and chemical feeders, and basically the letter states that they're the only ones they deal with these systems. So I mean, I can provide you those letters, but the other end of it too is, if you think we should, like you said, put it on hold and see if there's alternatives, to what's out there. I'm willing to look into that as well.
On my end, I'd rather the children have the operation of the pools for right now. But as we go forward for ongoing repairs and services, to think about what's possible, just in terms of my preference in supporting the work being done.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this has been taking a while to get these pools open, and I'm just as frustrated as you all are with where it's at and where it's been. So I'd love to see them open too. And I did want to provide some information to you all that one of the state requirements is that you have certified pool operators on site when you have these pools open, and ABM is going to provide you with those certified pool operators. We're going to pay the cost and get some people certified for these pools. The building managers will be there, the operators. So at some point we'll take care of that for you as well.
News.
Thank you. So hearing nothing else on this, we'll be pursuing the educational presentation or whatever it sounds like for the full board, which will be great. Because it's especially good because in our current procurement policy and our draft procurement policy that's being worked on is, we rely on that process through the city for sole source designation. So it'll be good that everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else on this, we'll move forward to the amendments. First one is an amendment to the agreement with Northwest Investment Consulting. Mr. Carter?
Okay, this amendment is to pay for the last invoice for the paraprofessionals who were added to the plan. And with their adding to the plan, there were additional participants and withdrawals, so we had to increase the agreement that amount to cover the additions of the paraprofessionals to this plan.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions for this? I had none, so we will thank you for providing the percent increase in the description. So move on to 6.2. It's like 6.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all related. Ms. Diaz Valencia, if you want to cover all those, and we can ask questions individually about them if we have them.
Okay, great. So 6.2 through 6.5 are amendments to the agreements with the CDC contractors. Again, we're the fiscal pass-through. This is a state grant with Friends Center, LULAC, Montessori on Edgewood, and Morning Glory. This is for private provider funds that came down as additional funding in June, which is why it's attached to the fiscal year 2024 contracts and agreements.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions on this? All right, and so that would leave, I guess, 6.6 with LULAC.
So it's actually more than just LULAC. It's all 4 of the CDC providers again. And this is an amendment to the agreements that just went through because there was an account number change that needed to happen for the new fiscal year.
Okay, that's right. No, so account number change. Got it. All right. Any comments or questions on these? Okay, so that leaves one contract, an award a contract to Connecticut Controls. Mr. McGrath?
Yeah, again, they have been our provider for years, taking care of the repairs, maintenance, and operation of all the HVAC on the properties. And again, it's just basically to continue the relationship with Connecticut Controls in New Haven.
And I'll just note it is a newer sole source designation letter.
Yes.
From 2024, so it's not an older letter. Comments or questions on this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, a similar question in terms of what makes them a sole source for the work that they do for us. And then my second question is around the service increase from previous years. I'm trying to understand, it says, yes, negotiated increase from 25% to 17%. Just trying to think what is that change due to financially? What is the financial change due to?
Well, again, Connecticut Controls has a lot of proprietary equipment on our systems, and they're the only ones that can work on it. So that's a big part of why they're a sole source. And I believe the increase is I mean, I think Mr. Carter can chime in on this, but I believe the increase was again, between cost of living, wages, all that, just a standard bump, that every year happens.
And is it 25% or 17% from last year?
That I don't have in front of me.
And that's more than cost of living, I think.
That is more than cost of living.
Okay. Thank you.
I can look into that, Mr. Yarbrough, to get you exactly what that cost of living increase is covering, or what those increases are going to cover.
Okay.
I know part of it was cost of living, but
yeah, I also share Dr. Yarbrough's question there, and if perhaps this could just be added to the cover memo explanation of the increasing costs, and if that could be done by tomorrow afternoon and gotten to Ms. DeMeo or to whomever, Ms. Manning or whoever they designate. Any other comments or questions? All right. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and that is I move that we send to the board with a recommendation to approve this one contract, these 6 amendments, the remaining 29 agreements, because one was already done, and the 10 purchase orders and the 10 abstracts.
A second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
President Rivera?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So those items move forward. And we will have a few discussion items. Let me get back to that part of the agenda. The first one is an item on the question of combining agreements for frequent contractors. Ms. Mayo?
Mr. Wilcox, so we're working to pull together a list of all of the multiple contractors. And to try to figure out how we would proceed with putting together one contract for Common Ground School, given all the various schools that they serve and the different funding sources, it creates a little bit of a challenge for us. So we just need to confer a little bit more about how we proceed with that, but we are working on it. So I'll be able to get back to you at another meeting, hopefully soon.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I'll just say that I think that one thing that would be helpful is just if so a lot of these are that we're talking about are done through the various schools. And so it's like, you know, one high school is going to work with them and then another high school and then an elementary school. And if that information just could be shared even informally with the principals so that as they're moving forward, they might realize, oh, wait, HSC is going to use them just like some other school is. So maybe there could work with that until this other stuff happens.
Definitely.
That is a good point about it. I guess it could. So what you're saying is that it could create issues because of the separate funding sources, because these are typically funded by various different grants.
Yes.
Or
we tried in the past to do this where we'd have one agreement and then we would amend the agreement to include an additional school. And after there was some difficulty because of the various funding sources and billing and invoicing and figuring all that out for the grants. So this is just some technicalities that we have to work out because there has to be a way to do it that would make sense rather than having so many contracts the way that we do for some of these organizations. So there's just some details that we need to try to work out.
All right, comments or questions? All right, thank you for that update. Next item is facility use planning, linking in-kind costs to after-school programs. And I think this was on here because we had heard previously about increased costs for custodial and security costs because of various, this is after school, not just after school programs, but also when other people use our spaces, if I remember correctly, that we were seeing increased costs for increased facilities costs for security and custodial, and how do we recover those costs or so on. So,
Mr. Wilcox, I can tell you what we're doing. We're meeting every 2 weeks and we're tracking those costs. We list the entity that is using facilities. We meet with them to try to firm down how many additional people, particularly if they have an event, they say it's going to be 2 hours, and then we find out it's 4 hours, and we have to, or they show up at the wrong time and not tell security. So we're trying to manage that process as well as list the custodial, the security, the type of organization, tier 1, 2, 3, and then also tracking any costs we recover from those events, particularly if they're tier 2 and tier 3. And we're able to give you a financial and operational report in October. We meet every 2 weeks and go through that in great detail.
Okay, my question would be, do you all anticipate that we're going to need to adjust the costs that we charge to outside groups?
Mhm.
And I see Dr. Negron, your hands up as well.
Well, I'll wait for Mr. Carter to chime in on that last question.
Yes, I'm working with Heber Alvarado, and we are doing benchmarking, looking at surrounding cities to compare what they charge based upon the number of events as well as the use of certain facilities. So we are looking at that, and we'll come back and provide those benchmark costs. And we do have some in the presentation, but those costs should be updated.
Thank you, Dr. Negron, and then Dr. Yarborough.
What I also wanted to add is that one of the approaches that we're taking now is as we explore grant opportunities of any kind, that we're no longer doing that in isolation. There's actually a team that works together. And what I'm asking is if there are costs related to either custodial or related to security, anything that would be additional because of the hours that be embedded from the beginning into the proposal, as well as when we do get the grant and we have to lay out the budget, that those things get filtered into basically the full scope of that grant so that it can support with those added costs. That often, right, we think just about the programming, but people are not thinking about the cost to have these services outside of the regular workday.
Thank you. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, first I agree with Dr. Negron. So Dr. Negron, thank you. And want to add, if the district is not already looking at this, but energy cost, heating, cooling, buildings. So if we have a service that is tracking energy usage and cost, it may be nominal or it may be significant, but maybe that is something that can be factored in terms of facility use so that we know, is it a cost that we need to recapture, or is it pretty much a wash?
Dr. Yarborough, I agree with that. I know when I was here before in the city, 2014 to 2018, there were groups that lobbied the mayor's office that we turned lights on at Gulf Street Park and to 8 o'clock, which we did. And next thing you know, it was 10 o'clock and our utility bill went through the roof. So I've been there and I agree.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing nothing else on this, the next item is an update on the next phase for preparation of a 10-year facilities plan.
Dr. White, could you put my presentation up, please? Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted to be brief and go give you a snapshot of the facilities plan process. If you look at the timeline, it shows the different phases that we have for the RFP. Thank you, it's blown up. But I would like to caution the committee that I have reached out to the city on their timeline for when they will go to uh, um, issue on the 2-year cycle. And while this is a snapshot, the timeline, we know that it's going to have to be expedited. And so the sooner I hear about um, the mark that the facilities plan has to be due for us as well as for the city. But irrespective, we have started on drafting RFP. I've been through the training with GovOps, as well as I reviewed the 500 page Cigar and Partners 10-year facilities plan. So to provide me data to be able to shape a better RFP, but we are committed to this and to getting it done. And if you have any questions about the dates, they're there, but they're not set in stone. And we know we'll have to expedite and maybe shorten some of those targets.
Dr. Negron?
Yes, one of the concerns that I had expressed to Mr. Carter is that we have to try to find a way to expedite this process, because the issue that we're going to run into is that if we need this work to be carried out so that we have sufficient data to inform the conditions of our mechanical systems inside our buildings. We then need to have an estimated idea, right, of what the cost would be to do some of the repairs that we are thinking of. And then how do we do that in a way that we can take advantage of the 2-year cycle for bonds, right? And I fear that that process is going to happen now if we don't have sufficient data to indicate where we're going, what are going to be our needs. We're going to miss the mark on trying to advocate for the resources that we need. So I know that Mr. Carter is going to do his best to try to expedite, but without this RFP process to go out and get a vendor to come out and do this work that we desperately need for the data to inform our plan, I feel that we cannot move forward.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you both, and thank you for this work. For some of the buildings, so I'm wondering, in terms of expediting, for some of the buildings, is there already data that was done, maybe from the time during the lockdown of COVID, where where institutions had to upgrade some of their systems? Is there data that's already done and maybe current, where we know what the needs are and can run with that to try to meet the 2-year bond cycle? So I'm curious if there's a way to divide up maybe the district projects to move forward with this, or does it need to be, or is it recommended that it's all done in one solid group together in terms of this timeline?
I think one solid group together. I looked at the 10-year long-term facilities plan, and it has a lot of good data. But there are systems that are, mechanical that are good at some school, and then electrical at the same school may not be up to speed. I will just say, from back in the envelope, our average school building is 21 years old, but we know we got some younger than that and some older than that. But most systems, from my experience, mechanical, electrical, and otherwise, their useful life is like 20 years. And so we got to lay these across each other and say, we need to look at all 5, but in some schools, it's going to be easy for the consultant to make an easy assessment, saying you could replace this in 5 years, 10, but this is 18 years old. By the time we finish, we need to replace it anyway, so we need to add it in. So there's a lot that has to be done, and I know this is critical. I talked to Dr. DeGrone and Mayor Ellico about it before I came, so we're committed to getting that information so we can move forward and get those capital funds.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, thank you for this update. And yes, the Spiegels and Associates study that was done, and I think it's posted in the first January F&O meeting of this 2024, has some basic information like age of buildings and general conditions, but not the exact things like this HVAC system has not been replaced, and it's
Right.
going to cost an estimated $800,000 to replace it, and we would use this system. So I mean, I think there's
Yeah. I think it's a very good study. It provides a baseline. I knew a lot about City Hall buildings because I work with Giovanni Zen, but I'm getting up to speed on the Board of Ed buildings, and this study is very insightful.
So my one recommendation would be just to, whatever the city side needs to be able to justify this, and it might be the peeling off pieces of this. So for instance, roof systems, being able to just say, we know we have some buildings which are problematic, which leads to damage in the buildings, potential mold issues, and being able to peel off some of those to, if nothing else, that there's something that justifies the, if nothing else, this time around we do roofs and or HVAC systems or something like that, and peel off something that might be able to then have the more detailed work done on some of those individual systems that would help justify it. There's been talk in the past of justifying it based on square footage of real estate, that using national standards, that one should have X number of dollars dedicated per square foot and be able to use that as a thing. I know that we have had previous testimony from a previous CFO. We spend about as much on 45 buildings as organization he previously worked with spent on 10 or 12 buildings in any given year, just in terms of the capital improvements. The final thing is, I do know that we're going to need to also have the plan in place if there's going to be any school consolidations, which buildings that we're going to work towards not utilizing as for school use anymore, that then maybe could also be sold to give them back to the city, with the idea that the sale of the building might be able to be useful to fund some of those renovation costs. But I do know, based on being in the meetings for the city budget, for the city budget related to the school portion, some of the alders are very much interested in knowing what the plans are, and I doubt they'll be wanting to move forward unless there's clear plans in place. They don't want to invest in buildings that we're going to then turn around and sell. And I would just say that we probably want to be looking at that sooner than later, because we do have some capital projects, playground projects, things like that. Are we going to invest in schools? We want to make sure that we're going to be investing we have so few dollars. We should be making sure that every dollar we're investing is in a building we want to continue to invest in, not just for this fiscal year, but for the next several. So I think that we might want to look at pausing some projects until some of these things are known. I think that would be very useful, that we want to make sure we want to continue to invest in these buildings if we're going to invest in them, understanding that we still have schools that need to run and children need access to services, and we have roof leaking, it has to be fixed. So I understand that, but major investments, maybe we should make sure before we move forward with them. Any other comments or questions on this item? Do appreciate the update. I'm glad you all are on that, because this is a huge year for the schools because of the city's 2-year capital budget cycle, as well as the state's biennial budget, where we really need to be really proving the value of the schools and investing in them. So, all right. If there's nothing else on that, the final item on this like 80 item agenda is a procurement policy update. I'll just say a few things and then others can chime in. There is posted some draft purchasing policy things. Meetings are been happening. I know on the city side as well as with the purchasing and with the corporation counsel's office. Meetings are planned with schools. The challenges are we're schools, and this time of year is when people are trying to get vacations in because it's all about to start again. But those meetings are happening. There are some drafts posted which shows where things are going, and I highly recommend people look at that, and if they have issues or questions that they get those to the committee and to Dr. Negron so that those can be in there so that it'll just make the process better because there's a lot of work happening now on this. Does anybody else want to add anything to that? All right, and I'll just say I'm available. I will try to make myself available to be at any meeting, preferably by Zoom, to help move this forward. But I can see from the drafts things are moving forward, and as I've said before, it's better to get this right. And everybody in agreement because there's a lot of moving parts to this. All right. Hearing nothing, I'd love a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'd love it seconded.
Second.
All right. And we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
President Rivera?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.